Good morning, everyone.
So, Hans, is Congress going to unlock the government today?
I think they are. I think they hold the magic key.
Do they hold the magic keys?
They
Actually,
hold
after
the,
I saw your presentation last night and I got to be Mr. $10,000, I believe you hold the magic key. But that's a topic for another day. Topic for another
it,
possibly
another
Thursday.
day. I mean, income never goes out of style, but we can talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean, look, at last I checked, Congress owns a lot of stocks.
Yes. I think the one thing that only keeps them actually doing anything is the fact that they do own some stocks. Um,
Just a few. I mean, Pelosi made $130 million in office on stocks. So I think stocks are important to them as they are important to us. And that, I love that. Our interests are aligned.
I think Congress and a 20% or 30% of the population has, yes, their interests should be aligned. I agree, but
What
we'd
do they
like to
say?
bring everybody along, I guess.
Don't fight
Owning
the
capital
Fed.
gains, yes.
Don't fight the Fed, right, Andrew? But also don't fight Nancy Pelosi's portfolio. Okay, we love
Yeah,
Nancy Pelosi.
I think
Bless
what's
her,
the
bless her.
lesson we can learn?
That's the new saying right now. She's a believer in income. She's a believer in upside. She's a believer in grabbing upside when it makes sense. When the market is saying, listen, we are full. This is a 5-alarm green, not red. This is a 5-alarm green situation, and you need to really pile into the market. So, yeah, I think, look, I think we've seen a market that really is able to shrug off just about anything, right? Just about anything.
Yeah.
Poor jobs numbers. I mean, that's the sort of that's the dislocation that is becoming more reality for us, right? That if people are not getting hired, it's because companies are using AI. And why are they using AI? Because they want their margins to improve. They want their productivity to improve. So there's a sort of kind of weird thing going on out there where it's not like it was 70 years ago, where if you wanted to build a business, you hired a whole bunch of people. So it's a strange kind of, Wall Street, Main Street kind of thing going on.
And I think too is also people figuring out how to use it to make things better. I mean, I know we've been using AI at Option Pit a little bit to improve productivity, but it hasn't stopped us actually from hiring people. To be quite honest, but it is making people more efficient.
I like that.
And
I like
and
that
it
idea, Andrew. And you know what? I talked about Salesforce a couple weeks ago, and I said just to bring that up again, just say Salesforce got rid of a whole bunch of people, and they said, "Uh-oh, look, AI is doing its thing." Then they said, "Wait a minute, we've missed out on $1 billion in business over the last few years because we didn't have enough people to maintain those relationships, to make those connections last." And so they said, well, no, we got rid of some people who are more in a kind of automated area where we can kind of have AI help us out. Now we're hiring 5,000 people who can help with these new relationships that AI is creating. So they're actually net hiring is the word. We'll see if that happens, where they're net hiring. So exactly to what you're saying, this could be very collaborative in some areas. I'm not saying every business is like that, but it could very well be a bonus, a positive collaborative type thing.
Right. But I mean, also, how often does big tech, after going through a big growth phase, do they just decide to fire 10% of their employees and look for new ones? I mean, I can remember forever, basically, big tech companies, they're going to get rid of the bottom 5% of their employees and look for new ones. It's kind of a never ending story. It is almost like we could say they rotate out of old employees into new ones. I've always basically traded options, or tried to start businesses. So the last big company I worked for was the Pacific Stock Exchange. That was the last, like what I would call organization that had more than, more than 200 people in it or 250 people in it. So it's been a while for me.
There was a chart I saw think it was yesterday, or the day before, and it showed how the advent of ChatGPT, which if you guys recall, was kind of like very late 2022, and it shows that versus jobs, and jobs literally fell off a cliff, and that is absolute chart crime. That is chart crime. There's absolutely no way that ChatGPT at that time had more than a 0.5% influence on jobs. It was more they hired a whole bunch of people in the pandemic. There was sort of regular things kind of going on. I'm not saying we disregard that chart. It is concerning in some ways, but to put those together is simply not. I don't think that's. I think it's being a little disingenuous. So we see
Right.
chart crime all the time. Chart crime is a thing. So just be careful what you see out there. But look, it's a real thing, right? It's a real thing, but I think we are starting to see this broadening, Andrew. Why don't we talk about this broadening? So I talked about this yesterday in Turbo Income a little bit. I said, if you notice what's going on here, we've got a little bit of squishiness in where those areas that have done very, very well. So some of the chips, as well as importantly, the data center play. So you look at things like Nebius, CoreWeave got crushed yesterday. And then some of those smaller power plays. So we talk about these crypto names, Iron, Cypher. These are the names that they used to be crypto companies, and now they are kind of these power. Come to us, we'll help you out because you need a whole bunch of power, and we're plugged in, we're literally plugged into the wall. We can help you, and those are getting hurt as well. So it seems that the market has less of an appetite suddenly for these names that are maybe not. They're a bit sort of benefits a little bit down the line versus companies that are really driving profits, and those AI efforts maybe going to the bottom line immediately. So we see, and we even see that bifurcation within MAG, don't we, Andrew? There's Apple's been doing great. Well, what is that? They're going to be selling a ton of these devices. Amazon is that wonderful combination of real world and AI and digital and all that kind of combined together. So that is show me now. Meta is not. Meta is kind of a little unclear on their sort of plan for AI going forward, and the market is punishing them. So we've moved a little bit more into show me now versus show me later, and we're seeing a little bit of a broadening play out, which I think is really exciting. That could really take us higher if this has legs to it. Look at healthcare. Look at some of these areas that are just starting to do well outside of your usual suspects.
Right, and that's that's what I do. I do my little mag set, my Flash 7 launch on kind of that, because that is the historical pattern of the market. Everybody's piling into a bunch of names that did well, and then they forget about what I would call old line, maybe boring businesses and stuff like that. But then again, all those businesses start becoming a little more profitable, and they're up and they're available at more attractive valuation. So this rotation thing, Hans, we've been doing this now for between the two of us like 70 years or something. So we just look young. We actually aren't that young, but it's not the it's not the first time we've seen sector rotation out of these bigger names, and there are lots of opportunities. Like drug stocks basically haven't done. They just got back to even for the year, in the last 3 weeks, and that's actually what I wrote my pit report for Monday on. There's a lot of room in drug stocks. Have they talked about, the only place where I've seen AI talked about it all a little bit with drug companies and drug development was CRISPR. And CRISPR kind of did a little moonshot and then it sold off again. I think they got, the drug they were working on didn't work, or an affiliate didn't work very well. But where is AI going to go for that?
It's going to be huge for healthcare.
Yeah, but the problem is right now there's no sexiness there, right? You've been covering the sexier stocks, well, when everybody's like, they're done, but they weren't done. And now you can see things sort of tailing off a little bit in that area.
It's an interplay, Andrew. So in my kind of roaring 20s scenario, I don't think we get anything. I think we get a little bit of leapfrog, right? So we're going to have the mag do their thing because they make all the money, and then we're going to have other areas kind of lead. Now I think we have this ability for in a true bull market, others have to participate. And so yes, you may look at some of these tech names that are maybe a little bit over their skis. They're not that expensive. Like Nvidia at 29 times earnings, it's cheaper than a bunch of like brick and mortar stores out there. So
Right.
it's not that they're that expensive. It's that if we look overall, the market multiple is quite high, and it's due to large cap being fairly sought after, let's say, over the last few years, right? People pile into the sort of more sure things, those balance sheet solid kind of companies. But
Right.
where we have value is in the rest of the market. And that's where at OptionPay, Mark's been talking about it as well, we're starting to find where we have been finding those other areas where there's value, right? So you can focus on the overall big cap PE multiple, which I could argue isn't even that high to begin with. If you look at Schiller, it's a little bit, it's a bit of a shill there going because it looks at too much data. So, but in any case, given the growth that we could see at this point, the margin, profit margins increasing, the potential for AI to really help, and many other tailwinds, there are opportunities out there. And I think that's what the market is telling you right now. It's moving into areas where that could also be juiced by AI. We talked about that. This is an opportunity for AI inference to play out throughout the economy. Okay, so this isn't, people keep saying it's like the .com. It's like every ounce of compute is being absorbed. Every ounce. Again, Nebius yesterday, they said, we could sell more. We have no capacity. We have no compute capacity.
Right.
Microsoft said it. A whole bunch of companies are saying we would love to sell more. That's not like the 90s. The 90s was let's build, and then it took 10 years, 15 years to basically fill all that capacity. So this is different. This is happening. This is now, and it's happening in such a broad way. That is the difference here. Why is there so much demand? Because it isn't one sector. It's all sectors. It's everybody, and enterprises just starting to get on board. Imagine the mass of the economy starting to move to AI and figure it out in small ways, in medium ways, in big ways. We don't know how they're going to figure it out, but they are going to try. And that is gears turning, and that is demand for compute. It is demand for all the stuff that we're talking about, but it's also going to translate to bottom lines. That might be what we're starting to see here. And I think that's extremely exciting, and a reason why, dear viewers, you should be also looking around, because there's a big, beautiful world out there, not just our usual mags and nuclear plays.
And also another thing about those stocks that are interesting is generally they've been lower volatility, cheaper calls, and also the stock prices, because they haven't really done much in the last year, because all the Mag 7 have gotten the dough basically, and everything that's attracting people. You have good growth stories in a lot of those names. So that's where I'm leaning right now, personally. So I hope it works out pretty well. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in there. So do you think, now Frank, this is normally a question I would ask Frank. Do you think there's any chance that Congress ever does anything to kneecap themselves? Like, as far as, they paid themselves during the shutdown. They won't use the ACA. They have their own health plan, which is apparently pretty good.
Sure it is, yeah.
But they won't use the ACA health plan, which I find ironic in the least. Do you think there's ever a chance that they will ban stock trading for them? And if this is a thing, like we said earlier, I almost prefer them, right, to want to own stocks, because that makes them invested in America, and like it would almost be a little spooky if all of a sudden congressmen didn't
Okay.
then all of a sudden it's like, then they don't care what's happening in the stock market. They don't care what's happening at all to anything. They just want to fill their coffers even more.
No,
Although
no,
I'm all for term limits, by the way. But
I don't think so. I think what they might do is there's a small chance, and I don't think they do much, but there's a small chance they just say, look, you can be invested in general index funds and things like that. I think they do that in some of the TV networks like CNBC. Like, I don't think you can specifically buy certain names, but to not allow people to partake in the most incredible wealth engine that we've ever seen, pretty much, I don't know if that's going to really pass muster. It's not going to happen. It's probably not fair. Is it? I know the word fair is a tricky word, but I think you have to allow people to participate in the wonders of growth and innovation and achievement and profits and things like that. So
yeah, and I am all for, like, it. And in my world, if there is transparency, you don't. If when things hide in the dark, it's bad. It's like, congressional spending, all of these issues where they spend money and we don't really see where it goes, right? And that probably happens in Canada too, but nobody knows where all the money goes. But if there's disclosure about them buying stocks within 48 hours or something, I think they could do that. I think that would be a start, because then at least you can see who the most egregious ones are.
Well, it's like and it's like you have kids, Andrew. It's like telling your 16-year-old, you never drink. It's evil. It's terrible. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to go drink. He's not going to tell you about it. I'm pretty sure if you limit people's ability to buy stocks, they're going to figure out a way to do it. They're going to do it through this company and that company in twirly roundabout ways, through whatever countries and structures. You're not going to make it go away. So that great point you just made. Rather than running their stock trades through things I'm never going to see, I'd like to see them. Let's see what you did.
Exactly, and I think it's one of those things where that's what I think should happen, right? In a perfect world would be, you just have transparent congressmen that people could follow what they're doing, And another thing too, though, Congress was clearly buying big tech, right? I mean, somehow they were seeing the writing on the walls with AI and everything else. And that was a theme that you followed for, like, you were kind of like saying, hey, I'm not going to be stupid about what congressmen are buying here. They are still piling in to, they're still piling into stock. So it was a good, you stayed with those names when everybody was, I think there was a lot of poo-pooing the market for from April all the way through. And look at, and another thing that people forget, at least this year, is that April sell-off scared a lot of people out of stocks again. And then you're going to have another year, right, of returns, where the returns in the market were pretty good this year. In the Q, they're over 20%. And, what is that going to do for us, right? Or what's that going to do for people looking forward? And that's how we get the second leg of rallies, right? All of a sudden, folks that were not invested decide to get invested. And I think that's where we have some. I think we're going to have some interesting opportunities.
Yeah, I don't think it's too late at all, Andrew. I think you get to the table is set for further upside, in my opinion. We know that any day to day we can get little pockets of weakness, which we had until a couple of days ago. We had a few days a week of sort of selling. That's natural, and that's a good thing, right? That's actually a necessary part of this. I know it sounds sort of cliche and stupid, but that actually gets rid of a little bit of the fluff, a little bit of faster money, and it sets us up for the next run up. But if you get into an environment where the Fed is very concerned about jobs, as they should be, we're going to be cutting rates, which I don't know if it's going to help the job situation, but you're going to be cutting rates. Inflation, I don't think there's a story there except in specific areas, right? The AI build out is going to involve, we see electricity prices that although they're just tracking, people make a mountain out of a molehill sometimes. Those prices are tracking inflation pretty much. So, but we're going to see some kinds of inflation, but overall we're going to see wage deflation. And so if we get into an environment where some of what we've just been talking about, which is the benefits of AI, start to spread a little bit more throughout the economy, we don't get severe shocks to employment. You've got a Fed cutting rates. You've got tailwinds galore. I mean, this market could go bananas again. And I think if you just listen to what the market is saying, and this is where I don't get the perma bears, because the market is telling you that it's shrugging off item after item after item of worry, and it's climbing that wall of worry. And I think there is a good reason for it. I'm not oblivious to the fact that some stocks are in mini bubbles, but overall, it's a very difficult market to get bearish on if you really look at what's going on. If you just look at the fact that we're up 1,000 or 1,500 points and go, well, we're going to sell off because of that. Okay, well, maybe that's a reason we give some back. But the fundamentals are actually quite strong. Profit margins are terrific. And if that spreads to the broader economy, it is going to be pretty special.
Right, and that's ultimately why stocks go up, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, stocks go up because profit margins improve. And the reason why stocks go up in the USA is, for the most part, I mean, I know there's regulation. We're trying to get less of it, but it's less than everywhere else. And companies, for the most part, can do the things they want to do to try to remain profitable. There's relatively low, like, labor issues, things like that are in, let's say in Europe or in other developed areas where they have real troubles trying to get property or energy, right? What does America try to do? Basically 24/7, reduce the cost of energy mostly, right? You have some states that are, they have ideas about energy and stuff like that. But for the most part, the idea of making abundant energy. So you have all these things in the US, and what are the Chinese trying to do to help growth in AI? They are trying to push the energy thing. And that's a theme that Frank and I have done in Capital Gains. Like, you can't get away from the need for energy, for technology. And hopefully those kind of things spill to the average person. So there is one kind of little story I thought we would touch on too, and I think your thoughts about it. But they report about 24% of American households are living paycheck to paycheck. Now that also means that 76% of households are not. Now, you see a statistic like that, and what exactly does that mean? Like, are they getting government benefits? How is that relative to the rest of the world? How does China live? Do they all live paycheck to be, like, who knows, right? But it's a narrative that makes people right. They worry about spending. They worry about consumption. I don't know if you've had any time to think about that as a story, but it might be something there. Maybe every cloud has I guess not a silver lining, but they do have silver linings. But maybe these could be some kind of a cloud that it pushes a different narrative in the cities, right? Like New York City, they basically just elected their first. I don't know what do you define him as, Mamdani? Democratic Socialist? Snapper Baker is saying 24% is way too low as an estimate. Again, I'm just looking at the stats that I see that's coming across the wire. Yeah, a couple of people think he's a commie.
It's a cry for help.
I'm interested to see what he actually does. But that is a segment of the voting population that just voted to put, let's just call him a democratic socialist in power. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, how it,
I think that,
it's a story that could affect things.
It is. And I think there is the potential for, I think that's a cry for help. I think there's the potential for some unrest at some point, right? We have to see how this AI versus jobs sort of situation plays out. And the fact is that there is more of a dislocation between Wall Street, meaning the beneficiaries of innovation and asset ownership, and the population that really doesn't own assets that keep getting pumped up and are going to face wage deflation in many areas. I think that's a real reality. And I think it's probably, now I'm in Canada where we are more socialist. I think that is probably a path to some version by necessity some version of having to help people, right? If you suddenly replace the ability for so many people to work, you have to do something for them. I don't know what that means. And the other day I put forth an idea that, well, maybe at some point they'll have to say, listen, tech companies, you're creating some wonderful things, but you're also costing people jobs and livelihoods. Maybe there's a tax on that. Maybe there's something, and I think something came out later that Trump said. I mean, we do have to help some parts of the population at least to retrain, to move in, but it's just not realistic to say, listen, a bus driver. No offense to bus drivers, it actually sounds like a nice job, chill job, but you can't expect them to become an AI coder, or even coders are in trouble now. So it's not realistic when you listen to these billionaires saying, well, you just have to be an innovator. You just gotta, we gotta just go and figure this out. Well, a lot of people don't have your mindset, my friend. You just made $1 billion because you have drive that is unbelievably good. And a lot of people just want to go to do their 9 to 5 and come home and leave me the hell alone while I watch Netflix and eat a bowl of, of Cheesies. And that's perfectly fine. I feel like doing that all the time, but we are going to have to help people. And I can't see how at some point we don't help them one way or another, whether it's a universal basic income, whether it's I'm literally going to create a job for you because, you need to have some purpose. There's something I learned in university, Andrew, way back when, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so people need at the top of that, after you've covered you've got shelter, you've got food, you can afford to put food on the table. When you keep going up, there's a need for meaning. There's a need for people to have to do something. And to just say, well, we're just going to pay you $1,000 to sit at home. That is not going to lead to much happiness.
Right.
Vinod Khosla, who's a billionaire, who says it's going to be wonderful because we're going to have so much time for all of our hobbies because it's going to be a world of abundance. Well, that's easy for you to say when your hobby can be like, flying your 747 like John Travolta, but it's not the reality for most people. So we have to give them an income. We have to give them meaning. And so I think things are moving so quickly that your point is absolutely well taken. There are things we cannot always think. That's how government sort of, government, as dumb as they are sometimes, that there has to be somebody who looks out for the greater good at some point, because it's not going to be Elon Musk and it's not going to be the guys who are driving.
Well, I mean, if you look at like a guy like he just creates jobs, right? He creates a lot of jobs. So the most important thing is still like opportunity, creating jobs. There are 7 million open jobs in the U.S. I know they are in Maine. Like there's help wanted signs everywhere. But I think people got to work for it. They definitely got to work for it. And that people need work and meaning in their life. And speaking of meaning in their life, we have an event on Thursday.
We had an amazing event, Andrew. We just wrapped up last night an incredible turbo income event, and the response kind of blew us away. We even had hundreds of people right at the end of me being long-winded and telling you about all the ways that I've made a ton of money over the last little while. And it wasn't about gimmicks. This really resonated with people. It was clarity on flexibility on an approach that really, I think, touched a nerve, which is income, right? I mean, we can do trades, we can have fun, we can absolutely move the needle, but when people hear that word income, it really speaks to, well, where am I going to be in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years from now? How do I get to where I want to be? And we talked about a framework that looks at my 3 different ways within this strategy: the turbo trades, the traditional income trades, the leaps trades, that really move the needle depending on the market as the MTI indicator directs us, right? Red, green, yellow. Can't be more simple than that. A 1-year-old can understand those 3 colors. And that's what I like, simple things, right? Sometimes I act like I'm 1, my wife says. So this is a strategy that we went over: a $10,000 portfolio, a $100,000 portfolio, $1 million portfolio. How do we do things differently for these people? We gave them handouts. We had them participate. I don't think we've seen a chat like that in a long time. For both events, it was just phenomenal, and we're doing it again.
Yeah, and also for people that want the replay, I believe it will be posted in this room. I want to make sure here for those guys, replay in the room. Post it in here. So it should be in here after we are done. You should see the replay posted in here, Karen S. Just like we should have the replay posted. Also, Thursday, tomorrow, what time, Hans? Are you going Thursday?
I believe we're heading for 7 p.m. Eastern again.
Okay, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So be ready at 7 p.m. Eastern time. As far as things go today, I think personally, shutdown over. Market's going to continue to rally, even though there's a little bit of noise here back and forth where the market's trying to look for a little bit of footing, mostly because big tech ain't going up, but all the other stocks are. And I think that's what we got. And we got Hans on Thursday. Again, check it out. But this will be posted. Last night's will be posted in this room here. And you guys, hey, have a good trading day. I'll see some of you in Rip Zone and some of you in Weekly Profit Cycles. Santa trade today for Weekly Profit Cycles. Just saying. Santa rally trade.
Thanks, everyone.